Hello once again and welcome back to Cool Keenan Games. I'm here playing Narcissu, and like I've said before, if sad stories is not your type of thing, then of course you do not have to stay here. But other than that, let's continue on with the story. Chapter 2, The Silver Coup. January 16th, 2005, 7F. A few days later, plunging further into the depths of winter. During this time that the rest of the world called exam period, we were sitting, watching TV, the same as ever. This is boring. So it is. This exchange that could not even be called a conversation. We'd spend all our days in this fashion, killing time without meaning or purpose. Speaking of which, when is it for you? Today. I see. So it's today? That word, that today, was the temporary discharge that she alluded to earlier. So, we may not see each other again? Yeah, I guess that's true. Because even if she were to be readmitted to 7F, that would be her last time. And in that time, I'd probably be discharged and readmitted myself. It didn't seem likely that things could be timed so that we could see each other again. Have you decided yet? About where I'm going to die? Yeah. No, not yet. I see. She nodded somewhat sadly, the expression of someone being discharged for the second time. I still felt nothing about the situation, and I hadn't heard from the doctors about my first discharge. Come to think of it, I wondered if she'd finally decided what her own answer to the dilemma would be. Setsumi? Everything's set. A lady came up to us with these words. This was probably her mother. She nodded slightly at me. I did not rise. We'll be leaving soon, but are you all ready? Yeah. Well, have a nice day, sir. She nodded slightly at me again, and then turned to leave this place. She did stretch out her hand toward that girl who was likely her daughter. But the girl did not move at all. She stayed rooted in her chair even after her mother had grabbed her hand. What's wrong, Setsumi? It hurts. A little. What? Where? Your chest? Your abdomen? My chest. Stay right there. Stay right here. I'll call the doctors right away. She took off in visitor-use slippers in a sprint towards the nurse's station. There were but two things left in this place, her and me, both in chairs. I did not know a thing about her disease or its status. The only things I knew were courtesy of her white ID bracelet. Her name was Setsumi, and her blood type was O. But we were inhabitants of 7F, and she was older than me, if just by a little. Hey, do you want to lie down over there until the doctors come? I pointed at the corner of the lounge, at the couch, at something that I'd never seen used. It'll support your back, after all.
別に
Doesn't matter. I'm
もう
fine
平
now.
気よ
Saying those words and nothing more, she stood up quickly. Hey, wait. Don't do anything foolish. But she was already halfway down the corridor before I could finish the sentence. Nightfall, after lights out. Bored of reading manga as usual, I wandered through the darkened hospital. The usual lounge, now pitch dark from the absence of light. That was where I found her. Hey, so you're still here? Yeah. What's up? Not feeling well again?
別に
Not really. Was all she said as she stared out the window. So her discharge had been postponed after all. No one knew when the next chance would come, but it would probably be weeks from now, not days. Hey, could it be that you feigned illness today? No, that probably wasn't the right way to put it. See, you couldn't say that we weren't sick all the time. What I'm saying is, you didn't want to leave the hospital, did you?
意味がわからないわよ
I don't know what you're talking about. Because there is no afterwards for you now. But there was no answer to my question in her silence. She had asked me so many times before about where I wanted to die. And it had always been that I didn't know yet, and that she didn't want to die at home or here on 7F. So you have no other place to go after all.
だったら
And what of it? No, nothing. This familiar lounge, flooded in darkness, her familiar stance, looking out the window without so much as acknowledging my existence. This place we called a hospital, and its extinguished lights, in spite of the fact that it was only 11 p.m. or so. This was the tangent point between what was normal and what was not. On top of that, we were inhabitants of 7F, bereft of any choice save one: death on 7F or death at home. The outside world that she was staring at from the pitch black height of 7F, the normal world. The buildings and homes were still radiant with light, and the street overflowed with people going home. And although my awareness of it was still vague, I was already an inhabitant of 7F, already an abnormal existence. There was no longer any way for me to go back to that other world. Was there now? My time is at a standstill. I'd spent so many seasons, so many white overcast skies, without the want or need to converse with anyone. At first, I would look down at the healthy kids going to school and the people walking back and forth on the streets. And then when I got tired of that, I always watched TV. Nothing else to do, nothing else I could do. Even when there was snow outside the window, it was always bright and sunny inside the TV screen. A dream world, stretching out before my eyes without heat, without cold, without pain. I sought comfort from my imagination. And so I amassed a huge knowledge base. Meaningless trivia upon meaningless trivia, over and over. And before I knew it, Nothing that appeared on TV seemed real anymore. And in quick succession, it also happened to books, games, and then my family. Finally, I was unable to view myself as anything as real, as if I were staring at scenes of another person's life. That's why I was not surprised even when they transferred me to 7F. If I but closed my eyes, the world would always vanish. So I thought I'd be fine, and I did as I thought. And soon enough, my second discharge from the hospital. By the time of my next admission, I'd probably be too weak to stand by myself. I found my own self, the one who couldn't do anything even though she knew this, to be pitiful. I found my own self, the one who had no destination, to be ridiculous.
時間を止め心を止め
My time at a standstill, my heart at a standstill, my chest standing still with huge scars.
それでも
I'd lived for 22 years now,
生きてきたのに
and I found myself utterly helpless. January 19th, 2005, 7F. A few days after that, the overhanging clouds had cleared up, and an endless winter sky was in their place. Oddly enough, my father had come to visit, a difficult expression on his face the entire time. But he was saying something or other about my insurance. And at that time, his eyes were not unhappy at all. I have to talk to the doctors for a bit. Saying this, my father strode down the corridor, toward that dim conference room where this had all begun, or so it seemed. My hospital room was now empty. Having nothing to do now, I reached for the weekly magazines that they'd brought at the stands for me. And accompanying them, just as ever, there were fruits and drinks and get-well gifts. And to one side of the basket that the fruits were piled in, right in front of the melons that I so hated. What I saw was a set of car keys. The keys shone silver. These were the keys to my father's pride and joy. These were the keys to my father's pride and joy. The coupe that he'd sweated over from the upholstery on outwards. The coupe that I'd asked to borrow a long time ago, and I'd been told no without a single second's delay. And my still unused driver's license in the breast pocket of my pajamas. Even after it had lost its chance for use that day, it remained with me, waiting, as if there were its proof of life. In silence, I grabbed the keys. It happened as if on impulse. I had no idea what my motives were either. I just seized them without a second thought, as if I were looking at a scene on TV. And a few days' worth of meds that I'd been dispensed, I stuffed those into a bag and I headed down the corridor. I snuck past the nurse's station and quickly strode toward the elevators. A bag in my right hand, the keys in my left, the long neglected driver's license in my breast pocket. In front of the lounge, And the next thing I saw was the girl sitting there, watching TV as per usual, staring blankly and boredly at that screen, sitting on a little foldable chair. Hey, your show any good?
そう見える。
Does it look that way to you? No, not at all. The all too expected exchange. Her eyes looked as far away as they always had. Well then, shall we go together? What? I continued talking as I showed her the keys in my hand. See, I don't want it to be at home. And I
戦いも嫌。
don't want it to be on 7F either. Well then, shall we go together?
Oh.
Okay. With that, she stood up from her chair. Her hair swayed with her and grazed the tip of my nose. And then she, too, stuffed a few days' worth of meds in a bag, and we made to leave 7F together. I switched off that boring TV. The grating laughter of the MC was forever obliterated. Both of us in pajamas clad boarded the elevator, heading down from this top floor down to 1F. At 1F, we headed not for the ER entrance, but for the outpatients clinic's entrance. The cold winter air struck away at our faces, all the more strong in a wide open space like the parking lot. The two of us wandered around the spacious field, looking about ourselves with unease. And after a little while, we came across my father's car. Silver Coupe. My father's pride and joy, impeccably maintained. I immediately inserted the key and opened the door. Go ahead, get in.
分かった。
Very well. I sank into the driver's seat. She was in the passenger seat. She was so short that she'd have a hard time seeing the road. I turned the key into ignition and stepped lightly on the accelerator, just as I'd learned during my training. Reassuring engine noises filtered into the cabin. I released the handbrake and then applied the clutch. Now we could go anywhere. That was our plan. Alright, let's go. Okay. She nodded slightly. Instead of replying, I shifted into second gear, and the car accelerated smoothly. Unused to the clutch and swerving slightly, I advanced slowly.
揺れるわね。
You're swerving. Yeah, it's my first time in a car. Well, it's the first time since I got my license that I've driven a car.
そう。
I see. The exit to the parking lot was now in view, and the largest road beyond it, without traffic lights. I turned onto it. The sound of honking car horns, those were directed at me as I cut into the road. Silver Coupe complained, but did not stop as I worked the unfamiliar clutch, the stiff gearbox. I must really have rubbed the other drivers the wrong way, as the honking of horns did not seem likely to cease. But I just continued to drive without caring much. None of it quite seemed real at all. Hey,
何？
what is it? Are you scared? do you want me to be? No, not really. Still before noon, the high-flying sun, the skies of January above and beyond the windshield, skies so blue that they seemed almost in mourning. We had no destination. On that cold day with an alien clutch and a swerving car. On that day when we drove onto the highway in our pajamas. On that very day of winter. Around when that blazing high sun had changed into a dusky orange. We were continuing to drive, just driving in any direction at random, in a place that I did not recognize. We're stopping for a bit. Okay. I finally brought the car to a halt. A roadside somewhere, far away from civilization, no traffic anywhere to be seen. Lonely. Having stopped the car in this nameless place, I started inspecting around the cabin. If there was anything useful here, we'd just run off without any preparation at all, if there was something troubling leaping out at me. With that on my mind, I first scoured the dashboard. There's nothing here at all. A couple hundred yen cluttered around the gear stick, a few volumes, and a cheap disposable camera. It wasn't as if we had a destination, but the onboard GPS navigation system was broken. And I only had about 8,000 yen on me. That was all the money I had lying around when I up and left. So combined with the pocket change I'd found, I only had 9,000 yen or so. Of course, I hadn't really expected that there'd be anything in the car anyway. But this lack of money presented a problem. It wouldn't be possible for us to find lodging on this budget. It didn't seem likely that this girl would have any money on her either.
どうかした？
Is something the matter? No, it's nothing. Whatever. I'd half expected this from the beginning. It wasn't as if I'd thought this through enough to have things like a plan or a schedule. I just wanted to get out, right then and there. I did not want to stay where I was. Underneath the curtain of twilight, I started up the silver coupe again. Hey, are you hungry? I asked her as I drove along. Come to think of it, she hadn't eaten anything since this morning. Want to stop at a convenience store or something?
Yeah.
No. Hey, don't be like that. And the food's much better than anything up on 7F. She did not respond to me. Instead, she looked straight down at the pink pajamas she was wearing. Oh yeah, that's right. I looked down at my own clothing. Sure enough, in these pajamas, we'd be conspicuous no matter where we went. Not that we weren't conspicuous right now. In any case, we'd have to do something about them. And having made my decision, I steered back towards civilization. After a little more driving, we'd arrived in a place whose name I didn't know. Probably somewhere close to a rail station. Certainly enough people around for it to be the case. There's gotta be one around here somewhere. I looked around anxiously as I drove, my back pitched a little forward, not touching the seat. Ah, there one is. At last, a coin laundromat. It looked pretty run down from the outside. On the first floor, a small forlorn building. This was as good a place as any. I stopped the car not far from the entrance to this place. Alright, I'll be back in a second. Leaving her and her confused face in the car, I walked into the laundromat. My nose was filled with the smell of bleach and detergent the moment the automatic doors opened. The exterior of the laundromat had told no lie, and the washers and dryers were old and run down as well. There's nobody here. The empty laundromat swallowed whole my murmured words. Only a single dryer was in operation, making its characteristic humming noises. I immediately walked to that machine and checked its timer. It looked like it would operate for 30 minutes on 200 yen, and only 5 minutes had elapsed so far. Whoever it was had probably gone somewhere else to kill time. Ruminating over this, I looked around just one more time to reassure myself that no one was around. Then, satisfied I was all alone, I put my hand on the door handle of that drying machine, and I abruptly opened it. Its door opened during operation, and the dryer spun down to a forced halt. I pulled out a clump of half-dry clothing, ignoring the heat and the humidity. And after looking around once more to make sure no one was around, I walked out of the laundromat just like that. She sounded slightly surprised when she saw my arms full of clothing, but I threw the clothes in the back seat without a word. Alright, let's go. I looked back at the bundle of clothes with the steering wheel in one hand. Gaudy looking sweaters and jeans and almost nothing else, all in pretty big sizes at that. All still wet, but the car's heating would dry them out soon. Change into whatever you like later. She did not react much to those words either. She just looked back at the pile of clothes. Look, we had no choice. I know. Well, obviously. It wasn't as if I liked doing this kind of thing. And it wasn't as if there was anything I was saving that money for. It was just that given the amount we had, it would be very difficult to buy new clothes. After I'd driven for a bit, around when the moon shone full above us, I stopped the car next to some public park. Probably a place for children to play, tucked away in a corner of a residential area. And there, I started looking through the clothes I'd stolen some time back. They were mostly dry by now, thanks to the heating in the car. All men's clothing, after all. I'd inspected the heap once before, a veritable mountain of gaudy jeans and sweaters. Probably someone around my age, around the same size, looked like. And sitting in the driver's seat of the car, I changed into a pair of jeans and a sweater. Hey, you should get changed too. They're all too big. Then will you go on wearing pajamas forever? Fine. She answered reluctantly, grabbed some jeans and other clothes, and opened the door. Hey, where are you going? To get changed? And just like that, she started walking to the park's bathroom. Hey, that was fast. She'd come back in short order. The pink pajamas that she'd been wearing in her hands, a white t-shirt, and a pair of jeans on her body. Well, that turned out fairly well. No answer. I'd expected this, but everything was too big and baggy on her. The jeans were too long and rolled far up at the cuffs, and the sleeves of the shirt were much the same way. The pajamas were better. Come now, don't say that. It's a little warmer this way, at least. She made an only slightly dissatisfied face at my words. Oh, is that it? Were you hoping for more girlish clothes? Not really. The same response as ever. I was sure that she was unhappy with her baggy shirt, but she soon returned to her usual lack of expression. It had begun to rain all of a sudden. A freezing rain falling from the frigid January sky, as if it had forgotten how to stop. The countless raindrops spattering on the windshield and obscuring the view from the inside. And when each grew too large for surface tension to hold it up, a few of them gathered, slid down, became rivers. And these rivers swallowed up raindrops underneath them and ran to the bottom. I stared emptily at the rain from inside. A parking lot somewhere, a desolate place in the middle of the mountains. Having finished shopping at a convenience store, we were spending the night here. The dinner menu: 2 rice balls, 500 milliliters of Pocari Sweet, half a bag of potato chips. It's been a long time since we last did anything like this. Yeah, she murmured, with the convenience store rice ball in one hand. It wasn't anything of wonderful quality, but it was far better than anything served up in 7F. And when we were both going after the potato chips, she suddenly stopped reaching for it. Was something the matter? Not really. But her eyes were turned past the windshield, glazed by the rain, at a few white flowers on the roadside. At some flowers soaked by rain. I didn't know if someone had planted them or if they were wild, but I remembered something about them. Those were the Narcissu? Those are Narcissus. Oh, right, Narcissus. While I didn't know flower names all that well, I'd at least heard of Narcissus before. And this girl, who seldom spoke a single word, was actually talking about something. And so I followed along. And speaking of which, are these not exactly the real deal as well? Yeah, something like that. So they must be pretty rare then. Not really. You can find them anywhere. Anywhere? And where exactly? It wasn't as if I had any deep purpose in asking. It was just that I was making conversation as best as I could. And yet this girl thought about it for a bit, and slowly opened her mouth. West. Awaji Island is famous for them. Awaji Island. Hey, wait. How far do you think that is? I just started driving a car, so I wasn't even halfway proficient yet. It was probably about 700 kilometers away, and even on the tollways, I couldn't say how long it would take. And in the first place, I didn't think we had enough money for that. If we went by normal highways instead of tollways, there was no way we'd have enough for gas. Hey, don't say stuff like that. You can't mean to go there, right?
誰が行きたいなんて
Who said I wanted to go? What?
問われたから
I just answered your question. And just like that, she went back to staring at the flowers across the windshield. The thick haze of the cold rain streaming on glass. She kept gazing and gazing and gazing. I didn't particularly want to go either. But I had nowhere else that I wanted to go. Okay guys, well, that's about it for now. Don't forget to comment, tell me what you think about the series if you're watching it. And don't forget to go like my Facebook page, Cool Keenan Games. But don't forget to go and follow my Twitter, Cool Keenan Games, of course. And I hope to see you guys later. So goodbye and peace out.
Ever see you cup? Got a couple bottles, but a couple